This is Life Transformation Radio. Prepare to engage. Seatbelt activated. Download initiated. Your quantum journey of transformation begins in 3, 2, 1.
I am so excited. I am so excited. Today is such a special day. 500. Yeah, today is the day. June 2nd, 2021. Welcome to the 500th episode of Life Transformation Radio. I'm Rob Actis, best-selling author of The Law of Action, voice actor, business mindset coach, the podcast whisperer, and Mr. Action himself. Life Transformation Radio is heard in over 90 countries. Thank you for joining us from all around the world. Whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to Life Transformation Radio for some time, I want to personally thank you. Here at Life Transformation Radio, we are committed to share more about real life, love, the power of positivity, romance, and of course, laughter. We care about helping others find their internal drive and purpose. We celebrate life challenges and overcoming them. Also, personal invitation from me to you. Please join us on Facebook in the Life Transformation Radio community. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. My very, very, very special guest today does just that. I am so thrilled to say that back on Life Transformation Radio, the creator, the father, he birthed this bad boy, Sean Douglas. Sean, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
What's up, buddy? I'm so pumped to be back. This is going to be absolutely amazing.
It's so cool. So, here's the deal. If you haven't listened to the show before, I purchased Life Transformation Radio from Sean a few months ago. However, Sean has been building Life Transformation Radio from just an idea and him nervous and not knowing what the heck he was doing back in 2017. Actually, the date was 2/13/2017, and to what it is today. And it's incredible. Top 1.5% podcast globally. And Sean, I just want to say, welcome back. You created something truly special. And I just could not celebrate the 500th episode because, man, they're almost all yours. I only have a few. I didn't do 500 episodes since April 1st. And I just said, you got to come back. So thank you for being here.
I love it, man. I love the direction you're taking the show. I love what you're doing. And I couldn't be happier for you, man.
I love it. It's great. And I really have enjoyed doing this. It has been, first of all, Sean's not going to say anything, but Sean's got the sniffles. So if you notice, he's got sniffles, he's got bad sinus going on, allergies. And that's the one thing about Sean that is really, truly incredible. Starting on February 13th, 2017, Sean was live every single day, Tuesday through Friday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Blog Talk Radio doing life transformation. First it was transformation or life. What was it? What did it start out? Life transformation?
It's always been Life Transformation Radio. Some guy took Transformation Radio like a year after I started.
Oh, so it was Transformation, because I think with the first one that I heard with Robert Thibodeau was the first one. It was great. Matter of fact, we're going to play it's all right. It's great. No, it's so cool. So I want to play from where you were and now where you are. So let's just talk about where you are right now. Where is your life? So you sold Life Transformation Radio to me. You moved on. You transformed your life. You had a transformation. And where is Sean right now, June 2nd, 2021?
Well, I'm about, 16 days, June 2nd. So 16 days away from my retirement ceremony from the Air Force. I'm retiring after 20 years of service, and I built 4 businesses while serving in the military, 3 of them to 6 figures. The last one is going to get there very soon. And now I get to do my entrepreneurial endeavors full time. On the weekends, I would go speak. I would take leave. I would go do some other stuff. I did business ventures, created podcasts, and now I get to do it full time with like no interruptions. And I'm pumped. I'm excited to close the door on the Air Force chapter and kind of reopen, I guess, the door, or kick the door wide open on this entrepreneur thing.
That's awesome. Well, you're definitely accomplished. And, one of the things is going to be a blast from the past. We're going to go back to the pre-launch episode, you called it. Oh, it was the episode with Sean and Robert Thibodeau. And strap in, Sean. It's kind of painful.
Oh, God.
And I'm here with Pastor Robert Thibodeau on the pre-launch episode of the new show, Transformation Radio. How you doing, Pastor Bob?
I'm blessed, brother. How you doing?
Man, I tell you what, this is kind of a new thing, man. We're dabbling in some new stuff for me. You've been doing this for a couple of years, though, but I'm kind of on the newness of this thing. So we'll see how this goes, man. I got faith, though, right?
Not a problem.
I needed all the prayers that day.
I love it. It's kind of, I really could feel for you because, the interface for Blog Talk is a little confusing and what you think it can do and can't do. And you started and you're stopped and it's live. And, I can imagine. And that was back in 2017. And, you're a little more advanced and you did a great job. And look at where you've come. So I just thought it'd be fun to go back to that very first episode.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Robert Thibodeau, I learned a lot from him. He actually owns Christian podcast studio and the Christian podcast and the space and all that. And I said, man, you own a whole station, like a radio station at the time. And you've been podcasting. It was like 200, 300, 400 episodes already. I said, man, what am I going to do? Like run me through the whole thing. So he was my first podcast coach and I learned a lot from him. And as Life Transformation Radio took off, we kind of elevated each other into what we were doing and marketing and the branding of the shows. And we just kind of came up together. And then he started speaking at podcast events and I was speaking at podcast events. And man, he's amazing. He's been an amazing friend through this whole journey.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to jump from your first show with him. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the show where, well, things are getting a little bit better. And now we're moving up just a month later. And, you're bringing on some good guests. Zig Ziglar's son, Tom Ziglar, March 22nd, 2017, just a month later from the launch of Life Transformation Radio. And this is a clip that I found that I really loved. It really just shows the heart of Zig Ziglar. I love it. The title of the episode was Live to Win with Tom Ziglar. And let's take a listen.
And Dad and I had, the most amazing relationship. I could have never asked for a better relationship. And I'm like 23, 24 at this time, early married. And I'm driving home. I put the bag, I take it out of the car, I put it in the garage. Dad and I hug goodbye. We always hug goodbye. And I'm about to get in the car, and it was dusk. I mean, I can remember this like it was yesterday. The sun's kind of going down. It's a warm summer day in Dallas, but it's about 95 degrees, 94, but it's starting to cool off. Shadows are coming out. And Dad's walking to the door and he says, wait a second. And he turns around and he says, son, there's something I got to tell you. And he walks up to me and he puts his hands on my shoulder, one on each shoulder, and he looks me in the eye and he says, son, I need to tell you something. I need to apologize. I don't think I've told you enough how much I love you and how proud I am of you. And that moment was just burned into me. And, as good as our relationship was, I didn't think it could get any better. But that just took it to a whole new level. And so now, when I tell that story or when I remember that, it's like I'm transported back to that moment. And so here's a father who was intentionally leaving a legacy. He was setting a pattern. And I know at that time in his life, because I remember he was really studying Jewish tradition, and he was doing all this research on, the Jewish tradition of fathers blessing their children, and specifically their son. And when you look at the positive benefits of that, I mean, the amount of kids going to, prison and all those things, all addiction, everything is way, way less.
Man, that story that he told, it was like you could feel the air get sucked out of the conversation. I mean, what kind of a father tells his son, he's like, stop everything. I haven't told you enough. And I wish I would have told you, like, just that self-awareness. And, I reached out to Tom. I spoke at an event that he was at. I know about the legacy Ziglar training, and we've had conversations back and forth, him and I, about that. And I said, hey, man, I got this new show, man. I would love for you to tell that story on Life Transformation Radio. He was like, absolutely, I will. And then I've spoken at other events with him, and the guy is absolutely incredible. And if anybody knows anything about Zig Ziglar, that man was incredible. And he tells a second story on that show. I wish everybody could go back and listen to that episode, because he tells a second story about when Zig Ziglar sold out an entire stadium and people were lined up to tell how Zig Ziglar changed their lives forever. But that story right there that he just told, wow, it was powerful story. And what he says after that too is even more amazing. So you have to go back and listen to that episode. That episode is amazing.
Absolutely. And, speaking of power, you're moving on to May of 2017. So February, March, April, May, 4 months, and you're really starting to get some steam. You're really starting to pick up your technique and your style. And you brought on Bruce Buffer from the UFC, the voice of the UFC. And, how was that?
Oh, man. That was intimidating. I had Tom Ziglar on the show. It was like, holy cow, this is awesome. I'm getting some amazing guests. And then Bruce Buffer said yes. And I was like, wait, is this real? Like, holy crap. And I remember ending the episode, taking my headphones, throwing them down on the desk. And I was like, I just wrapped an episode with Bruce Buffer. I was calling everybody like, I made it. Let the millions of dollars come. I've made it.
That's awesome.
And it was a great show.
It was. You know what I loved about that show is when I say powerhouse. So you made a statement in the middle of the show, and you said whatever. It's a red wagon, and Bruce is very direct, and he's like, no. It's he was just like, no, you could think it this way. And he called you out in the middle of the show of there we go.
Yeah, he did.
Well,
that guy is no BS too, man. That dude is no BS.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I have a clip from that show. I think it'll bring back some great memories.
I always tell people when I'm doing my training, even in the military, when I'm doing my training, I always tell people, in order for you to be successful in any arena that you're in, no matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to be successful by one thing, and it's the most important thing. I always tell people, I said, you have to know the rules of the arena that you're playing in. You gotta learn to play that particular game, that particular skill well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because that's the game you're playing. That's your game right there. You got to know your opponents are, get everything together. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. And I feel like we can't ever do this alone, right? So I got to ask you, who's your biggest influencer?
That would be my father, Joe Buffer.
Okay.
My dad, as far as the influence, and my mom. Obviously, I've had influence from a lot of other people, but I've been benefited from having wonderful people surrounding me, as well as some of the bad experiences that have occurred to give me that learning experience. But my dad was a brilliant man. He basically had me, working on my attitude towards life at a very young age. And I carried those principles into everything I did in life. As far as now, my mother, I've lost my father, but my mother is still alive and a very motivating factor for me. And Kristen, who you've dealt with, who's vice president of my company, has worked side by side with me for 19 years, is my right arm.
Oh, wow.
And has had a huge influence on me in my life.
After the episode wrapped, I did talk to her, and I sent Bruce an email, and I said, just thank you so much. You've really made my day. This show is every part of me, and I'm giving everything I have to this episode. When you played, even to now, like you said, I feel like there was a growth. I feel like there was a more conversational aspect. It wasn't just asking questions in an interview and what you hear now. Certain podcasts, you'll hear somebody go, yo, yeah, oh, yep, good stuff. And then they'll ask a question, the guest response, oh, yeah, yep, good. And that's the whole show. This was the moment. This is the turning point episode, I believe, that I have to have a real conversation. If I am to consider myself a legitimate influencer, podcaster, entrepreneur, businessman, I must have the ultimate conversation, right? Like the ultimate conversation with the ultimate announcer. And I felt like I did that. And he responded, very kindly in the episode, or the email after the episode. Pleasure doing it. So happy that, that you decided to do this. Thank you for your service, like the whole thing, and we parted and that was it. I just am so grateful for that. I believe that was my turning point episode. I said, if I could do an episode with Bruce Buffer, I should be able to do it with anybody. I should be able to carry on a conversation with high-level influencers if I can make Bruce Buffer's time worth it, because I know the dude is super busy.
Well, you did good. You did good. And then right after Bruce, like not even 2 weeks, you had on a guest who's very near and dear to you. And let's see if this may trigger a memory.
It's not a job. I got to say that. And I think that's probably important for people. When you can do something every day that you love. And a guy told me once, he goes, you're never working. He goes, because it's not a job. It's not a ball and chain around your ankle. You go to work, but it's not a job. It's just you love what you do. So to me, it's just easier. So I love getting up in the morning and be able to do this because it's thrilling. It's encouraging, and to see other people's look on their faces when they see the stuff we do, that's a great feeling to have. So that's my why.
Uncle Tony and TJ dropped by. It's a family affair.
That was, man. Like, as I'm listening to the episode, I was like, that's right. I mean, as soon as I hear the voice, and I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, so this one was, this was near and dear. So my Uncle Tony and my cousin TJ, I had asked them to come on the show. I wanted to talk about cars, and we ended up, and this is the first 3-way episode that I've ever done. This is a 3-way episode. My cousin was at his house. My uncle was at his house. I'm at my house, and we're doing like a 3-way podcast. I mean, this was.
Look at you, man, back in 2017. Look at you doing all that music. Oh, look at that.
So my uncle is the owner of ABC Performance and Advanced Body and Color. He owns a 72 Chevelle. He builds professionally 64 to 72 GMA models or A bodies. Chevelles is his love, right? So he's driven on TV, on MAV TV for Search for the Ultimate Street Car. He swings that big old body 72 Chevelle around the autocross track. And, NASCAR lover, car lover. And I was like, man, I got to have him on the show. And then my mom called me, and then my grandma called me, and like all these other people started calling me. He's like, dude, that's so cool. You had your uncle on the show. That's so cool. And man, that was like a really heartfelt moment for me and my family, and especially him. It was his first podcast. And my cousin TJ was like, what the hell's a podcast? So that was super fun. Yeah, that was super cool.
Well, there's another show took place in June. We're still in 2017, but we have a ways to go. And cool show. Loved it. The guy, just a very heart-centered man. He gives and he gives and he gives, and he truly makes a difference in people's lives. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm 99% sure I know where you're going to go with this. As soon as you said heart-centered, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Yeah. First name, Frank.
Yep. Founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Frank Shankowitz. Good friend.
Absolutely. Let's take a listen, see if we can trigger a memory for you and for the audience, of course.
Or tears.
Yeah.
70% of the children that had what was a terminal illness back in the early 80s are now surviving those illnesses.
Sure.
Which was such a turning point. In fact, I was involved with a group of doctors that could not understand this. We have what we call a rush wish. A doctor will come up to us and the family and say, if you're going to do this wish, you're going to have to do it within the next month or two because the child is not going to survive after that period. The child goes on the wish, whatever it might be, comes back from that wish or after receiving that wish and goes into total remission. And the doctors can't explain it. I can explain it. The child has so much fun. The child has so much fun. The family has so much fun. The child is saying, let's a 7 or 8 year old, you know what? I got a lot to do. The heck with this. It's all psychosomatic.
That episode was pre-Wishman movie. We met. I shot my shot. It was like, hey, I've had these guys on the show. And he was like, I would love to. He was an Air Force airman from 1960 to 1964. I had no idea he was security police and all that. So we had a great conversation about that. And he's an amazing man. And, he has since passed on, as of 2021. And he is missed, definitely.
Yeah. Now we're moving on into, we're to 2018. Can you believe it? We're in 2018. We jumped a year, June 6, 2018. You had Trish Roberts, and she was diagnosed with MS, and it was a powerful show. Let's take a listen.
Probably the best thing I ever did for myself is I asked a friend of mine if he knew a trainer. And I went and I began to work out. And I'll tell you what, after 6 months even, I began to feel like a different person. I just had more energy. I was not at first. When I first started working out, I would go home and sleep for 2 hours afterwards.
Right.
But yeah, definitely. But there are so many people with this disease that think they can't do anything, and they can do so much. I mean, I never thought I was going to be a speaker. And the thing about that was so wonderful is it's like coming full circle from acting, singing, dancing on stages to being a speaker on stages. When I got there, I was like, I'm home again.
Right.
So I love speaking, and I love helping people know that they can do more, and that not their disability or their adversity. They just happen to have one. It's not them. It's not their personality. It's not them as human being. Exercise, they're finding, is almost as helpful as the MS medication.
That episode was our highest rated episode for, I think, over a year or just about a year. Blew the ratings out of the water. I mean, if you look back at the ratings, they're huge. And Broadway music star, MS, turned women's life coach for women with MS. And I've got emails and screenshots of messages that I sent Trish. I mean, this episode put Life Transformation Radio on the map. It absolutely put it on the map. What an amazing episode.
Now we're moving into 2019, Sean. And this show definitely near and dear to my heart. I am someone who had a daughter who was bullied in high school, and it's terrible. I know people that have committed suicide based on bullying. So when I heard this, getting these clips ready for the 500th episode, it was pretty impactful. I'm just going to go ahead and play this clip for you right now, and this will definitely spark a memory.
Well, the why is definitely to honor my son. I was not able to save my son's life. I had no idea what was going on in his life. And like it just hit us like a ton of bricks. Led me to a very dark and spiraling depression. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if you believe in God or a higher power or something, but something literally pulled me like, this is what you need to do. Like I was pulled into this career. Like, this is what you need to do. You need to help kids overcome their traumas, help them get out of their situations, how to make sense of their lives. And that was the why of what I do. It's all to honor my son and to save as many lives as I can.
That was Charlie Mitchell. We shed some tears over that episode. His son was bullied in school, and one day he came home from school, walked upstairs, and ended his life. They found him in his closet, and man, I've got 4 kids, and I cannot imagine the burden of bearing a child. And this episode, I think, was really powerful because a lot of talk about bullying and screen time and suicide, and it was all wrapped in one. Yeah, Charlie's episode was, that was emotional, especially as a parent. That was really emotional.
Well, we're into 2020. Hold on a second. Yeah, it definitely pulled some heartstrings and definitely had some tears when I was listening to that. If you haven't heard that show, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. It's very powerful and it's very current for today, like 2021. There's a lot of teen suicide right now. And believe it or not, even though they're not in school, they're still bullying each other. And it's just heartbreaking. Well, on a positive note, in 2020, December of 2020, you had an author on. Pretty big author, like a household name author, Mark Victor Hansen.
I'd heard about For the Teenage Soul. My mom tried to give that to me one time. I'm like, get out of here. I'm not reading this. The first book I ever read was Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. The first personal development book I've ever read. From that moment on, I was like, Mom, just give me the damn book. So I got into the Chicken Soup books. I read those, and I was like, that's just amazing. And then I started getting into John Maxwell, started getting into all these other people, and I became a voracious reader. And from 2009 to 2013, I was in it. I was loving it. I became, I was speaking at high schools to other flights that were going through basic training. And then I won Instructor of the Year in 2010. And my life drastically changed. The moment that I saw the positivity in everything, the moment that I believed in myself and did something bigger than myself, because I was like, oh, I'm the face of the company and I'm, that ego, it just completely drowned out everything we were doing.
Ladies and gentlemen listening, listen to what he just said. I read Norman Vincent Peale. Now, he was my minister in New York, and Dr. Peale and Ms. Peale were great friends of ours, and he created Horatio Alger Awards, and we're lifetime members. And he came from rags to riches and have been excessively philanthropic, helping at-risk kids get to go to college. But ladies and gentlemen, the subtext of what Sean just told you is what's so critical to him, Crystal, and myself. We read our way out of the problem by asking, because you read the book, your imagination wakes up, and God gave us 2 great powers. One is the power of imagination. And the second one, which is underused, which is why we wrote this book, is you've got to learn to ask some critical questions. Because he said, look, I thought I was a hotshot. I didn't use my potential. Then all of a sudden I'm called on to, I'm going to kill myself if I don't. And so I start reading Norman Vincent Peale and then my books, the Chicken Soup books, and it transformed his being from nowhere to being Instructor of the Year. And every one of us has a destiny that is glorious, a record-breaking, history-making destiny. And the only way to get to it, as far as we're concerned, and you'd say, you're pushing pretty hard for a guy who sold 500 million books. Well, I'm going to sell 1 billion books, but that's not your issue. My issue is I've got a book here that's going to transform you, and I don't want you to buy one for Christmas now. I want you to buy 2. One for yourself and one that you want to help the most, whether it's your spouse or your kid or your teenager or staff member or somebody, and go through every question in the book. Because a couple of days ago, Crystal and I got 121 letters from people who read the book and said their lives are totally changed. I'm going to let her talk to that. But it's exactly that, because you read the book, it transforms you at a cellular, mental, physical, financial, and social level. that is just unspeakably good.
Mark Victor Hansen was absolutely incredible. His wife was on the show too, talking about the new book that they wrote. And it was just so great to talk to somebody that I had only read about. I think that's the coolest thing about podcasts, right? I mean, you see this book, you're like, oh, what a great book. Oh, it's amazing. And then you create a medium that you can actually have a conversation with the person. And he loves being on podcasts. So what better way to get him on the show than to have him on a show, on a podcast, which he loves to do anyways. He loves writing books. He loves, having conversations with amazing people. And we've had many more conversations, him and I. What an amazing guy. What an amazing couple. That was a super cool moment. Yeah. Thanks for playing that.
Absolutely. Very, very, very cool. All right. So we are at the beginning of 2021 and things are changing. It's a conversation that went very quickly, just a matter of minutes. And I declared, hey man, I want to buy Life Transformation Radio. And from that point on, I felt a freight train coming at me really, really fast because I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just do? Because you're doing the live shows and I have a lot of other spinning plates and a lot of other, things in my life that I do. And I'm like, what did I just sign on for? And then I got overwhelmed with all the tech and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh no. And then I'm like, I'm all in. So April 1st, I was going to take over. On March 3rd, you had an interview with Melanie Luntz of the Secret Service, or formerly of the Secret Service. And what happened, Sean?
So it's funny about doing shows live. You never know who's going to call into the show, and you really never know what's going to happen on the show. We've had tech errors. Guests have dropped off. I've had to carry the show for about 5 minutes until they got back on. But like I said, people just call randomly into the show. And some handsome bald dude called into the show, and he's like, hey, taking over the show. Nice to meet you, Melanie. I'm like, holy crap. He called into the show. And what a cool conversation. It spun off the rails into an amazing place, came back on the track, hopped off, came back on the track, and we pulled into the station. It was so funny.
She wants to go to this restaurant that's in Astoria, which is a ways away from where we were staying in. I think we were in the Upper West Side or Upper East Side that time. And so we were driving the motorcades. We go to the restaurant, and a lot of times the protectees would get the agents dinner or and stuff. And she did. Her staff person came out and said, hey, the Prime Minister would like to get you guys dinner. They've got stuff set up in the basement so you guys can take turns. So I was like, oh, how sweet of her. So I'm like, well, this guy that's been driving the motorcade all day, he needs a break, right? So I went up to him and I said, hey, dude, go downstairs, get your food. I'll watch the cars, while you do that. Come back and then I'll take a turn. So he's like, okay, cool. He left the car running and my freaking butt bumped that door and it closed. And I locked in the car of the running limo of the Prime Minister of Slovakia. And I was mortified. So you'd think, right? A squared away agent would have the spare keys in her pocket, right? Oh, yes, I would have. However, I was sitting in the car with this guy at some point, and the keys had come out, so they were in the cup holder. So I'm looking in the car, and there's the spare key in the cup holder. And I was like, oh, the boss, if something bad had happened, this would not have been good. This could have been real bad. But, so I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Oh, that was a fun moment. That was super cool.
and then I remember we had a conversation offline after the show was over, and Sean says, what have I done to my listeners?
Yeah, I was like, oh boy.
Oh man, really? Seriously? So Sean continued to do the show while I was getting ready and doing the rebranding and adding my touch to everything. And he wanted to just, this is his baby. He didn't want to just leave. He wanted to slowly fade away. He kept pushing the date back. Yeah, it was supposed to begin March 15th. You're like, yeah, if you want to go to April 1st or whatever, yeah, it's totally cool. I'll take over. Yes, no problem. So Sean keeps doing these shows. Sean gets excited about a lot of guests. And I have heard him talk about his different guests. I've known Sean for a couple years, and he's talked about the different guests. Now, there was one guest that Sean booked, and I'll just say it, he got giddy. He just got giddy. Like, oh my God. He called you. I got, who did you get? Who did you book on the show that you just lost it? Who did you book?
I don't get starstruck, man.
Dude, you got totally starstruck. And I'm going to play that clip and how starstruck you are. So seriously, who did you get on the show there, Sean?
When your favorite band and your favorite person of that band, Bruce Kulick from Kiss, who was from the 80s to the 90s and took over for Ace Frehley. Holy smokes. I guess I was a little giddy.
Yeah, you were like fangirling all over the place. It was so adorable. It's all I can say. Hopefully this may jog your memory of just what went down. This may jog your memory of what happened with you and Bruce.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm a Beatle. You see what I'm saying? How I'm trying to just connect the dots there. What an opportunity for me. You know, even though, as we know, the Beatles didn't replace anybody, you know, when they broke up, and then sadly, we started to lose some. But as you know, the Kiss has kept their dream alive of being a rock band and continuing. And even though I haven't played with them in all these years, people still connect to that. Then they study it, and then they look at the whole history of the band, and then they're discovering my unique non-makeup era. So, but I was transformed by the Beatles. And then, of course, I think the other big transformation in my life was actually being asked to join that band. Okay. Because, it was a little unusual. I was temporarily in the group because they already hired a new guitar player who had a health problem. And then they asked me to fill in. I thought I won the lottery then. And I was, the most important person in the world. And then, of course, they said, no, you're the new lead guitar player. So that transformed my life. And I knew that if I could hang in there and this thing could have some legs and tenure into this guitar playing role, that I would have a lot to be proud of. And like I mentioned earlier, I've never been more proud. As I've gotten older, I see it even more clearly. What a incredible blessing it was for me to have 12 years with those guys. It's really incredible.
I listened to that show, and you and I, it seemed like we were talking every day, every night. We'd call him, like, hey man, I got this graphic. What do you think about this? Hey man, I got this one guest. I'm trying to do this. And we're like quarterbacking this thing, right?
Yeah,
it's the handoff. I'm passing the baton, and you and I are having many conversations a couple times a day. And then I was like, Rob, guess what? And I dropped the Bruce Kulick. I was like, Bruce Kulick is coming on my show. We're going out on a high note. I'm setting you up, man. But that was secretly, that's kind of what I wanted to do. If I can't just leave the show and be like, all right, dude, on your own, like, see you later, pick all your guests. Like, people are normally listening to the show. We drop a couple, hey, by the way, a new guy is going to host the show. Hey, by the way, but I really wanted to go and get an amazing guest who would share the show all over his Twitter, all over his Instagram and Facebook, and like everywhere, and talk about it. And he did, and it was super fun. And then the ratings started to spike after a while. And I'm super excited that not only could I do that for you and set you up, like, look who was just on the show. Look how high and mainstream the show is. But I really this was like the end all be all. Like, we got to get a big name guest. And I reached out to Bruce, and he's like, dude, would love to. I really try not to fanboy too much, but that was my favorite band growing up, and it still is.
Yeah, no, I love Kiss. And here's the thing. I just want to commend you because you tried to bring me in. Hey, you got to be part of this. You got to be part of this. And I'm like, no, I'm busy. I can't do it. That was all by design. I wanted you to just be in that moment. I wanted to be Sean and Bruce. That's what I wanted. So I really appreciate it. I didn't let you know how much I appreciated you want to include me in that and have me part of that. I would have loved to have been on that show. But look, you're my friend, and we've done this together. We've had just an incredible transformation of power and of where we're going with Life Transformation Radio. And I'm like, I got to give that to Sean. I got to give that to Sean.
If you and I were to ever to go to a restaurant, I don't think we'd make it into the door very quickly. And that's because I think you and I are both unselfishly selfish, because we sit there and go, no, you go first. No, I'll hold the door. No, I'll hold the door. No, you go. No, I'll pay the bill. No, you pay the bill. And then they just back and forth. Like, we care so much for each other that I was like, no, I want to do for you. No, I'm going to do for you. And so I really wanted you to be part of this conversation with Bruce. It's like, oh, come on, man, call in and like be on the show. Like, we can host it together. Like, it's Bruce freaking Kulick from Kiss. Like, come on. And you're like, no, man, it's all you. And I'm busy and I've got other things to do. And I can't make, I was like, oh man, come on. But I thank you so much, man, because that was a cool moment that I got to share with a guy that I had spent most of my childhood listening to. And I really selfishly wanted to set you up with an amazing guest the day before or 2 days before you were to start taking over the show, so that the listeners, and he's sharing it on Twitter and everybody's noticing the show, so that when you take over, you're at the very highest that we can be, which, if you know Rob, there is no limit to what Rob's going to do. So that was a super cool moment and something that I really wanted to make special for you, that look at this guest that we just got. Oh man, he's going to take the show to a new height. You're going to take the show to a new height. And I couldn't be any more thrilled and honored that you're at the helm.
Thanks, man. Well, speaking of at the door of a restaurant, and I would let you in, you would let me in. Who's going to pay the bill? I'm going to pay the bill. You're going to pay the bill. I returned the favor. You wanted to tee me up for Bruce. Well, I wanted to tee you up, and I wanted to have the most incredible guest of all ever in the history of Life Transformation Radio. And I made that happen. So on March 31st, 2021, an amazing guest appeared on the show. Do you know who that is? And that would be me.
You've been on my show like 4 times.
I have not. Yeah. If you go back, here's the thing. Drives me nuts. I'm just going to digress for a minute because I can. Here's the deal. Sean has, oh my God. He's like, dude, I'm like, when am I going to be on your show? Oh, dude, you've been on like 3 or 4 times. No, I haven't. And then the one time I was on, and it's still up there, drives me nuts. If you haven't noticed, I'm an audio engineer. I'm an audiophile. I'm a voice actor. I care about audio, like to the nth degree, to a fault. And my show was over the internet, and the internet was not cooperating. And so for 35 or 40 minutes, I don't think anybody has ever listened more than 3 or 4 minutes of that show that we did a couple months before or a month before, whatever. I don't even know the date. I tried to forget it. The audio was so terrible. So I'm on March 31st with Sean, and my whole intention, my whole goal was to make him cry. And it was really the culmination of everything in Life Transformation Radio. And it was the opportunity for Sean to share his story of transformation. And I really want you to go back, if you're listening to this show, to go listen to that. It's one of my most favorite shows. I have another, my most favorite show, but this is really my other favorite show, is Sean was so vulnerable, and he was at the other end of the mic, and it was pretty powerful.
That gave me the experience. That gave me the moments to carry with me to tell my story. That came so many tears and so much heartbreak, but I needed that. And everything that happened has led to the next thing. I had to have that transformational moment. I had to try to commit suicide so that I could help people and change people's mindset from the suicide moment. I then had to learn how to tell my story, being a drill instructor. I then had to have a platform to tell my story on,
master resilience trainer, a book, a podcast. I then took all of that and made what the coaching business is now. So I look back and I'm like, wow, God is so good. He made everything happen the way it was supposed to happen so that I could live the life I'm living now.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I would say you, Sean Douglas, definitely had a life transformation. Okay, so you're here. I'm taking the reins, sort of today, officially tomorrow.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, what's next? How can people follow Sean Douglas?
All right, man.
I told you my goal is to make you cry.
To kind of just birth this thing and then watch it flourish into the world, man. I'm so pumped.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for creating this, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for being alive to empower, inspire, and motivate, and teaching people how to live their best life. And that even in those dark times, that light is ahead.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, I want you to do, law enforcement officers, when they retire, they do their last radio call. So I would like you to do your last wrap up of Life Transformation Radio today on March 31st, 2021.
All right, man.
I told you my goal is to make you cry. I know. There's tears. Sean's a big, burly Air Force military guy, super scary looking. People say he's kind of scary because what are you, 6 foot? What? 6'3", 2, 1?
Yeah, 6 foot.
Yeah, he's kind of a big guy.
6 foot,
He's not
220
big,
pounds, man. 6 foot, 220 pounds, man. I'm a big, hairy American winning machine.
Exactly. All right, so it's time, man. This is it. This is your moment.
Yeah, man. So, Life Transformation Radio listeners, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all the support over the years. And I wish you the best for the rest of 2020 and beyond. Make sure you subscribe to Life Transformation Radio. Make sure you share it with your friends. And be sure to listen live as Rob Actis takes over as the host of Life Transformation Radio. And as I close, I always say, live your brand. Find opportunity.
Wow, man. Yeah. You had to throw that in there, huh?
Had to.
That was, you called me right after and you're like, man, like, how you feeling? And like, what do you think? And it was a moment. And I'm sure that June 18th at my retirement ceremony for the military, I'm going to feel the same way. Something that I spent so much time building, so much energy on, so much time. It's bittersweet, man. It's something that you don't want to end, but know that it's necessary for growth sometimes, right? I mean, that's why we get haircuts. That's why we take showers. There's things that we need to keep doing, right? But to have you kind of guide that process as well, man, that was everything. I mean, that was everything. And I had conversations with people that really wanted to buy the show, and I had conversations with people that found out later on someone wanted to flip the show and resell it. I'm like, what? No, I would never do that. But to have you as not only a friend, but a colleague, a peer, if you will, and you're way farther along in the, like you said, audio engineer and voice actor. I mean, this is you. This is your thing. But to have you with me for this moment, man, that was amazing. And I really wouldn't have it any other way, man. There's no one that I think is better suited, is more prepared, who just has a love for what he does than you, man. I mean, I put in a lot of time, but you've got such a better skill set than I do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let you say that. Yeah, I don't have a better skill set than you do. What you did is incredible, and it just shows how we are. We're very complimentary to each other, and no, we really are. And I'm not gonna let you, my friend, to say I have a better skill set. I have a different skill set, but I don't have a better skill set, and I'll never let you say that. I'm never gonna let you say anything negative. What you created is truly remarkable because it allowed me to have the moment that I'm going to share right now. And that was April 1st, the launch of me, Rob Actis, as the host and owner of Life Transformation Radio. And I could think of no other guest in the world that I wanted as a guest on the show. I had to have my daughter on, my daughter Aidan, because she has a story of life transformation that I've seen, I've watched, I've felt, I've cried, I've yelled, and she is the epitome of life transformation, especially to me, her father. So this is an excerpt from April 1st, 2021, just a few short months ago, the very first episode of me taking the reins of Life Transformation Radio. Extremely emotional, not only but taking the reins and what that means to me and to Sean and to the listeners, but also that I had my daughter on with me. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. My guest today does just that. I told you I have a special guest. It's my daughter, Aidan Actis. Aidan, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Hey, Dad. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of another person. Everybody was asking, who are you going to have on as your guest? Who are you going to have on as your guest? Well, today I have my daughter, Aidan, on. And the reason I have her is because she has led a life of transformation for many, many years since she was 14 years old. If you're familiar with my book, The Law of Action, I share my experience of what happened to our family, especially Aidan, on June 8th, 2013, when Aidan was just 14 years old. Aidan, first of all, welcome. And do you want to just take us a little bit through that story?
Yeah. Let me just start from the beginning. We had a giant day. It was, we had a mud run, if you remember.
I remember. That was great. Anytime we can play in mud, I'm down for it. You're like, hey, Dad, let's go to this mud run. I'm like, mud? Okay, I'm in. Yeah, it was an amazing day.
Yeah, it was the beginning of my summer. I was getting ready to start high school. And it was very, very hot that day. And so we decided to go on a mud run, and we got lunch afterward. And so we started going home, and I just started getting a headache, and I was like, oh, just didn't drink water. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it was to that point where I was sobbing, and I was laying on the ground, and I was basically at my mom's feet, and I was just sobbing, and I was like, Mom, help me. My mom kept saying, Aidan, are you okay? Because my mom put a wet compress on the back of my neck when I was throwing up. And she's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I wasn't responding. And she's like, Aidan, are you okay? And I turned, and my face was drooping. And that's when she called my dad. And she's like, we're going to the ER right now. And when we got to the car, I started drooping and sliding into a coma.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah. It was sheer terror. All right, Sean. I know you got teary-eyed and you cried on the last episode the day before when you handed the torch to me. And I'll admit, I had tears pouring down my face on this show for a lot of reasons. One, as a father-daughter moment, it was amazing just to be so proud of my daughter and to, start building a legacy for my daughter. And she is truly one who's overcome so many obstacles, and she is the epitome of Life Transformation Radio. So, yeah, I cried. And now,
who would cut onions during a podcast episode? Like, for real? Like, I'm sitting there listening to this episode, super excited, and I hear the story, and I had turned around to see who was cutting onions, and it was Rob Actis and Aidan cutting onions during the show. I was like, what a powerful, I had tears in my eyes listening to that show. I'm like, wow. Like, I had some amazing stories on the show, but you, my friend, like that show, people need to hear that show. Cause again, when it's kids and it's your kid, it's powerful. And that one, wow, that would suck me in, man.
So that's my most popular show of all the shows, by far.
Yeah.
It's truly remarkable. What I loved about that show the most was in my book, The Law of Action, I talked about what happened to Aidan with her 4 strokes and her brain surgery and having a 4% chance of survival. And that was from my perspective. That was what I experienced as a father, of looking at her in the bed in a coma. And in this show, she was able to have a platform to share her experience and what it was like to go through what she went through, and actually learned some stuff in that show. I had no idea she was aware of some of the things that occurred that she remembered and she was conscious for. And that was very powerful. So yeah, that was it. I tell you what, Sean, when we hit show 1000, you got to come back. Actually, you can come back anytime you want, but we'll definitely have to have another celebration at show 1000.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You in?
For sure.
All right.
Yeah, man. I'm so excited, man. I'm speechless. I'm so excited. Traveling down memory lane, seeing what you've done with the show, seeing the guests that you've had on, and the conversations that we've had behind the scenes, man. I'm super pumped. I'm excited.
Me too. Sean, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for creating Life Transformation Radio. It certainly has transformed my life, and I know it's transformed many, many other people's lives. And just thank you. And thank you for being here this celebration of 500th episode. I couldn't have done it without you, and I certainly wasn't going to do it without you here.
I appreciate you having me, man. It means everything.
Really appreciate it. And thank you, the listeners, for your support and taking the time out of your busy and precious day to listen to me, Rob Actis, and Sean Douglas. We so appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me, along with my very, very dear friend and special guest, Sean Douglas, over the last 500 episodes, to touch your heart, move your soul, and inspire you to live a life of transformation. I'm Rob Actis. Until next time.